Intimidate. It's one of the most important abilities in competitive Pokémon. Ever since its introduction in Generation 6, Incineroar has been the Intimidate poster child. This weird, furry wrestler is one of the strongest Pokémon of all time. Its impressive combination of Intimidate, Parting Shot, and Fake Out functionally invalidates every other Intimidate user, and you would expect to see it on almost every team in the formats it's allowed in. But luckily for us, it isn't in Scarlet and Violet, so it's time for the other Intimidate users to come out of their hiding and finally get to show their stuff. But just because Incineroar is gone, it doesn't mean every other Intimidate user is viable.
Scary! Shiver my timbers!
There still has to be a top cat, or dog, and that's what we're looking at today. We are going to break down every Intimidate user in Scarlet and Violet and crown a winner. Of course, spoiler warnings ahead. Let's get the baddies out of the way first. Masquerain is a bug type and has pretty mediocre stats. Bad typing and bad stats don't make for a strong Pokemon, almost no matter what its ability is. So let's move on. Qwilfish is a better typing for sure, but its defenses and damage output aren't very good. But Overqwil and Hisuian Qwilfish holding an Eviolite may be worth looking at once they're legal when home transfers start. But that won't be available for the first few tournaments of Scarlet and Violet, so they're beyond the scope of this video. Next, I want to knock out Luxray. On the surface, it looks decent. Good attacking stats, and only one weakness. But Luxray's competition has a lot of the same tools Luxray gets, like Snarl and Helping Hand, and they have a better defensive profile. If you could take 30 or 40 points from Luxray's useless special attacking stat and put them in his defenses, it might be a different story. But sadly for Luxray, that's not the real world. Now we're going to look at some contenders that might have a niche. They aren't the strongest in a vacuum, but I wouldn't be too surprised if there was a team somewhere where they were the right choice. Staraptor? Honestly, should be in the first category, but it top-8'd Worlds way back in 2014, so we'll show it some respect. It's not great. It's a pretty fast, pretty fail physical attacker without much in the way of strong support options. It gets fast Tailwind, but so do two other Pokemon we're going to talk about today. Its only really unique trick is Final Gambit, but I can't remember the last time Final Gambit has been anything more than a meme. If you really want to play Staraptor, I'd recommend a set of Protect, Brave Bird, Tailwind, and Close Combat. Give it a damage boosting item like a Sharp Beak or a Focus Sash to make up for how frail it is, but I really wouldn't recommend it. Staraptor probably isn't even the best normal flying type with Intimidate. Squawkabilly is a new Pokemon, and I won't lie, I literally screamed when I first saw a Pompadour Parrot on my screen. Good job, Game Freak. Squawkabilly has a lot going for it. It has Parting Shot, Tailwind, Taunt, and a whole bunch of other support moves. The problem? Normal flying isn't great typing, and its stats kinda suck. It's fast, but not fast enough to consistently protect itself by pivoting out with Parting Shot, and its bulk is a joke. Even with Intimidate, it won't take a hit for most physical attackers. You really want your Intimidate user to stick around to pivot in and out. If you want to run Squawkabilly, I would recommend a set of Tailwind, Parting Shot, Protect, and Brave Bird. And I'd give Squawkabilly a Focus Sash. Try to keep it around long enough to do its job. Before we get to our next Pokemon, if you find this video useful or entertaining, please consider subscribing. About 1% of my audience is subscribed, and I would really love to bring my content to more people. Thank you. Next, we have Stantler. Weirder won't be legal for the first season of Scarlet and Violet, but Stantler will still be able to benefit from an Eviolite, an item that increases the defenses and special defenses of a Pokemon that isn't fully evolved. So combined with Intimidate, and your Stantler is nice and bulky. Stantler has a few things going for it. With only one weakness, Pure Normal is a pretty decent defensive typing. It's the only Pokemon with Intimidate and Trick Room, which makes for some good roll compression. Instead of needing to spend a slot on a Trick Room user and an Intimidate user, Stantler does both by itself.
Yeah, boy.
Has a pretty decent support move pool beyond Trick Room too. Imprison, if you want to use Stantler as an anti-Trick Room mon, Light Screen, Reflect, and Thunder Wave to name a few. Overall, Stantler is very good if you need a Trick Room, Setter, / counter, and an Intimidate user rolled into one. Rounding out the middle tier of Intimidate users, we have Crocodile. Crocodile has a solid attack stat, good offensive typing, and thanks to being a dark type, is immune to Prankster. You need a good physical attacker to hit Steel, Fire, Psychic, Ghost, Poison, and Rock types, and a good Intimidate user, but don't have room for both on your team, Crocodile is your guy. Crocodile has some good support moves like Snarl and Taunt, but that's not really where its strength lies. He's here to hit hard and make your opponents hit less hard. There's a few directions you could go with a Crocodile set, but I would start with Rock Slide, High Horsepower, Crunch, and Bulldoze. On that set, I'd recommend giving Crocodile an Assault Vest. If you want Protect on your Crocodile, drop Bulldoze or Rock Slide and give it a sustainability item like Citrus Berry, or a boosting item like a Life Orb, depending on how you want to train it. We've dealt with the rest, now let's talk about the best. All these Pokemon are very strong. What really separates these four aren't their power levels in a vacuum, but how the metagame ends up developing. Only one of these four will be the best. Let's break them down. If it wasn't for Incineroar, Arcanine would probably be the Pokemon most synonymous with Intimidate. It has a solid defense profile, and enough of an attack stat that you don't need to invest in it to make sure it does good damage. People even take advantage of its special attacks sometimes. It's a little lower than its normal attack, but then you don't need to worry about things like Intimidate yourself. Arcanine has a deep pool of support moves to choose from. Bulldoze to slow people down, Snarl to lower special attack, Will-O-Wisp if you think Intimidate isn't enough physical damage mitigation, Helping Hand to boost your partner Pokemon's damage, and Morning Sun to keep your Arcanine healthy. Right now, I would run Flare Blitz, Snarl, Morning Sun, and Extreme Speed. With a Pokemon like Arcanine who has so many options, it's really important to keep an eye on the metagame and adapt. Give Arcanine a Citrus or Iapapa Berry for longevity, and try to find one that's Terra Water so you can get a cheeky resist on a Water-type move thrown your way. Our next one is another classic, Gyarados. A lot of bulky water types that usually compete with Gyarados, like Milotic, and electric types that threaten it, like Regieleki, aren't in this game, so its stock is on the rise. Gyarados has a great defensive profile, 95 HP, 100 special defense, and 79 defense. 79 defense wouldn't be great, but Intimidate makes up for that. Gyarados has one big downfall. It's 4 times weak to electric. Sure, you can make up for that by using Terrastalize to make it a ground type, but if a Pokemon needs to Terrastalize to be strong, that's not a great sign. Gyarados' support move pool isn't super deep. It learns Helping Hand, Taunt, and Thunder Wave, but not much else. In that way, Gyarados is a little like Crocodile. It's an Intimidate Pokemon that wants to be one of your main damage dealers as well. There's 2 sets that I would consider for Gyarados right now. A setup one with Dragon Dance, Waterfall, Protect, and Earthquake holding a Citrus Berry, or an Assault Vest set with Waterfall, Earthquake, Crunch, and Iron Head. Salamence is a lot like Gyarados. It gets Intimidate off, then just acts like a normal attacker. Its physical attack stat is extremely impressive, but just like Arcanine, it will often use its special attack instead to avoid being intimidated. Salamence has a 4 times weakness to Ice, so you need to be careful about that as well. Salamence gets Tailwind and has a base speed stat of 100, so you can get a physical or special attacker, fast Tailwind setter, and an Intimidator all in one Pokemon. It's clear why it's such a strong option. Right now on Salamence, I would run Tailwind, Dragon Claw, Dual Wing Beat, Protect. Make it Terra Steel, and give it a Citrus Berry. You might be thinking to yourself, Scraw, do you think every Pokemon should be running a Citrus Berry? You say it a lot. Yes, I do. Well, not every Pokemon, but those that fill the same roles tend to want the same items. Guys that want to be bulky and disruptive, like a lot of Intimidate Pokemon, want an item to help them do that. Alright, we only have one Pokemon left, and it's a new one. Mabostiff has a similar defensive profile to Arcanine, a good offensive and defensive typing, immunity to Prankster, and has access to support moves like Taunt, Snarl, and Jaw Lock. On Mabostiff, I would run Jaw Lock, Taunt, Snarl, and Protect. I would give it a Citrus Berry and make it Terra Fairy in case it needs to dodge a fighting type. So, there we have it. Our 4 top contenders. Arcanine, Gyarados, Mabostiff, and Salamence. But only one can take the crown. Let's look at the developing VGC meta to see who lines up the best. 2 of the best special attackers so far this generation are Fluttermane and Iron Bundle. They both hit Salamence extremely hard, and Salamence can't do much to hit them back. So, Salamence is out of the running. The Calamity Quartet, the post-game legendaries for Scarlet and Violet, are all extremely powerful, and they're all dark types. With such stiff competition, Mabostiff is looking like it's in trouble. Combine that with how threatened it is by Fluttermane, and that's enough to keep it from the crown. We're down to 2 options, Gyarados and Arcanine. Generation 1 OGs, but which one is the very best? Strongest Intimidate user in Scarlet and Violet is... Arcanine. Gyarados is a little bit of a one-trick pony. It gets off Intimidate, then just starts trying to do damage. Arcanine can do that, heal itself, disrupt the opponents even further with Snarl and Will-O-Wisp, pick off weakened Pokemons with Extreme Speed, you name it. If I hadn't seen Arcanine do it all myself, I would think it'd light on its resume. It's just a much more flexible Pokemon. Now, of course, this is all contextual, and can, and probably will change as the format develops. Thanks for watching, I hope you found this helpful, and let me know what Intimidate user you're the most impressed with in the comments. Thanks, and bye.